Now here you have the sin of avarice. It isn't enough to have one house. It isn't enough to have one piece of land. They add house to house and land to land until they have consumed the goods and stand alone, isolated from everyone. First, Isaiah says, as God penetrates their sin, verse 8, you are guilty of a grasping materialism. Verse 8. Woe unto them who join house to house, who lay field to field, till there's no place that they may be placed alone in the midst of the earth. The insatiable greed of the landowners of Isaiah's time caused a great amount of poverty, because what it did was it kept putting all of the resources in the hands of the few, making the gap between the very rich and the very poor wider, and eliminating almost altogether anybody in the middle. Amos speaks of it, Hosea speaks of it, Micah speaks of it, and they were all Isaiah's contemporaries. Wealthy men ruthlessly acquiring property, amassing fortunes, squeezing out the poor and the helpless, and making them buy at inflated prices to fill their own coffers. There are people in our country who have contributed to the demise of this country by grasping materialism. Verse 10, he says, there's going to come a day when I bring famine in the land. Your houses are not only going to be empty, but your fields aren't going to produce. 10 acres of vineyard shall yield 1 bath, and the seed of an homer shall yield an ephah. What it means is 10 acres will produce about 4 gallons of wine. That's famine, folks. 4 gallons of wine out of 10 acres. A homer of seed is about 48 gallons of seed. And he says 48 gallons of seed will produce 4.8 gallons of result. 1/10. Famine. What a picture of America. Time magazine says America is like an unloved child with an ice cream cone, fat, full of pimples, and screaming for more. We're materialistic. We're indulgent. We're possessive. The nation has gone into materialism, and let me tell you something. The church is riding the crest. It's a sad thing to see Christians caught up in that grasping materialism. Secondly, Isaiah says Israel is characterized by a drunken pleasure-seeking. Verse 11. Woe unto them who rise up early in the morning, that they may follow strong drink, who continue until night, till wine inflames them. And the harp and the lute, the timbrel and flute and wine are in their feast, but they regard not the work of the Lord, neither consider the operation of his hands. Listen, they don't have any time for God. They're too busy getting drunk and having entertainment. Let me tell you something, people. I can't think of anything that's more characteristic of our society than a drunken, entertained characteristic. We live in a stupor in our society.